So, Larry, if you could come up onto the stage.
Thank you, Alana. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Colin Milner. He's the CEO of International Council of Active Aging, and he's the founder of the active aging industry in North America. Mr. Milner is also a leading authority on the health and well-being of older adults and has been recognized by the World Economic Forum as one of the most innovative and influential minds in the world of aging-related topics. An award-winning writer, Mr. Milner has authored more than 300 articles and has been published in such journals as Global Policy and the Annual Review of Gerontology and Geriatrics. He also contributed a chapter to the World Economic Forum book on global population aging, Perils or Promise. And Mr. Milner has received the CanFit Association Lifetime Achievement Award for contributions to the Canadian fitness industry. That's a great combination, healthy aging and fitness. We are very much looking forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. I'm looking forward to everything. Now, as we move forward, I will just simply share my screen with everyone so that we are able to get started, and off we go, as they say. So today, I'm going to talk about healthy aging and how it is the great disruptor. In some people's minds, is it the great disruptor or is it not? And that's really what we're going to look at today. Is we're going to look at how aging well and healthy aging will impact us as a society and as business, and actually what we can do to embrace this opportunity. And I think that's the key word right there, embrace the opportunity. For many of us, this opportunity has gone unnoticed in many ways in regards to marketing, in regards to a variety of other things that we'll talk about today. But here's the reality, and that is old age is over. Well, at least according to the headlines from the MIT Technology Review. If you're a good lawyer, though, you would look down into the bottom of this and see the small print, and that says, if you want it to be. And if you want it to be is really what we're going to talk about today. The if you want it to be are all the different things that you need to do to actually live well, age well, so that old age is pushed much, much later, and for many of us is over. What it needs is really a new language. So let's start with a very simple question, shall we? How will a healthier older population impact society? Well, we talked about impacting business, impacting society as a whole. Well, according to research that just came out a little while ago from Barclays, and actually it also was through Deloitte's as well, and McKinsey, and a variety of other groups that have highlighted this. If we can actually add healthier years to our middle life, we would actually be able to extend not only the opportunity to live with fewer health conditions, but there would be fewer earlier deaths. There would be expanded participation in society and in the workforce, and increased productivity. And for those of you that like the bottom line, it would impact the GDP by 12, now hang on, $12 trillion, just simply by having fewer health conditions and expanded participation. So how do we get there? That's the question. This all sounds great, doesn't it? But how many times do we hear a lot of really good things and then we can't achieve those things? Well, as it turns out, two things have to happen. One is that the greatest barrier to living better longer is right up here, and that is how we currently conceive old age. At least according to Dr. Joseph Coughlin, which I have got to say, I agree with Joe, and he and I have had many conversations about this. And the other part of all of this is the fact that we need to understand that we have actually been gifted an additional 30 years of life, and we need to earn our health span within those years. A lot of times we hear about longevity, we hear about living a better quality of life, but the reality is nothing is guaranteed. The average life expectancy in Canada is 82.2 years of age. The problem is that we spend 10.9 years of that on average in ill health. And I can say I've seen that with my father, who spent the last 15 years of his life in ill health. And the last year was nothing anybody would like to actually experience. So, how do we eliminate or reduce this difference between longevity and healthy life expectancy? Well, tough job. However, based on the same report that I mentioned, utilizing interventions that already exist today, not creating new things, just utilizing existing interventions, we could reduce the global burden around health issues by about 40% over the next 2 decades. Think about that. Reducing the health issues that we see day in, day out that limit our ability to live the life we want to live, and the individuals we work with to live the life they want to live, by up to 40%. Using interventions that already exist. Well, let's look at some very simple things that we could do. Sometimes we put many complex issues in front of people and they don't do things. So here's 5 simple things that can be done to not only extend our longevity, but to live a better quality of life. At the turn, at the turn of the, I was going to say at the turn of the 1900s, we were living to the age of 47. Now we're living well past that. And a lot of times we forget that we can change things no matter what age we are. A 50-year-old woman, and as an example, can live 14 years longer, and a man 12.2 years longer by doing these 5 things that I mentioned to you was coming up. And this was a study that was done by the American Heart Association in about 123,000 patients over a 34-year period. And what are these 5 things? They're no great secret. Never smoking, exercising 30 minutes a day, having a normal BMI, eating a healthy diet, and consuming a moderate level of alcohol. Our problem. What do you think the problem is here? Adoption, behavior change. I've been trying to kick Diet Coke for the last, 30 years. Tough thing to do. So what we know is that only 8% of people actually are doing those 5 simple things. So if they were that simple, we should all be doing them. It's all about behavior change. And what we do know, however, is today we have changed our behaviors to the point that an individual that is 75 to 80, based on a new research study that just came out last year, actually showed that these individuals today are healthier than we were 30 years ago. They're stronger, with better muscle strength, walk faster, their reaction time is better, even though 1 out of 3 people still fall each and every year. That's individuals over the age of 65. Our verbal fluency is better, and our reasoning and working memory is better than 30 years ago. So we see a picture that is being created of an opportunity to live a healthier, better, longer life. Now, the question is, how will all of that impact us? Think about this. We have all these products and services that have been designed to manage disease. But what about the products and services that will be needed to create a better lifestyle, to create better health, to create longevity? And how will all of that actually impact the workplace or the family? Less costing caregiving, working longer and new and interesting and different jobs. Of course, the opportunity that comes up with that is, who's going to do all this reskilling? Is it a mentor? Is it a mentor or an intern? You put those 2 together and you have a mentor. Okay. How is all of this going to change healthcare? What about the taxes that we pay? We'll be paying those taxes longer because we are working longer, which is contributing more to society. which changes perceptions of aging and the ageism that we experience day in, day out. Housing. We already see that senior living communities are shifting significantly, and I will use them as one of the examples out there. And also, uh, the reality is that individuals 50 plus are one of the fastest growing segments of entrepreneurs. So as these entrepreneurs create these new environments and build products and services geared for them and their parents, consumerism will also continue to rise. And we'll talk about that as we move forward in the presentation. And of course, caregiving, I mentioned that it would be impacted significantly, and also our savings. So with all of that in mind, let's look at where we are and what the new models, new industries, new language, new rules, new programs, new products, new education, and the new places that are needed for us to actually move forward. So think about this for a second. As we look at all of this, there are two words that come into play here: new and more. There are more older adults who are living longer, who have more money, who are looking for more products and services that meet their needs. They're looking for new ways of doing things. So we need to change our areas of focus. We need to focus on what is relevant to them, and I say them, relevant to us. What is it? Well, let's start. This is a think tank that we did not very long ago, and we asked that exact question. And at the heart of all of that was one word: flexibility. I've been there, done that. I want to be able to have flexibility in my contracts. I want to be able to have flexibility in my lifestyle. I don't want to eat at a certain time if I'm living in a community that demands that I eat at a certain time. I want to be able to collaborate with people. I want to be able to experience personalization. I want to be empowered. I want to be integrated into the community. I want to be re-educated. I want to focus on solutions-oriented thinking as opposed to not. These are just a few of the many different things that are areas to focus on as we look at how to embrace healthy aging. So, are we ready for me and for this young lady right here? That's a simple question that each and every organization needs to ask. And then when you look at the research that comes around that, what is the research that is needed to move forward? So these are 9 principles of active aging that the International Council in Active Aging created a few years ago. And when you look at this market, and it is a market, and when you look at these individuals, and they are individuals, there's an immense opportunity for research in each and every one of these areas, and also for business in each and every one of these areas. And what we're going to do now moving forward in this conversation is to focus on these 9 areas. So let's look at number 1, populations. A lot of times we talk about the older population as everybody is the same. Well, if you're older, you do this. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. The diversity of the population is significant and requires diverse solutions. So let's look at an example of an innovative way of thinking. And for some reason, the mouse here wants to keep jumping back, and that's one of the innovations: easier, less sensitive technology. So here's the reality. We know that no 2 individuals age at the exact same rate or at the exact same time, and that we all age differently. So I shouldn't say at the exact same time. I should say we age differently and we age at different rates. What does that mean? That means one size fits all solutions are really a model that is not best suited for our population today, especially our older population. It was easy. You had 3 TV stations. You just blurted everything out to everybody and somebody would buy. Today, you have much more customization in your television stations. Why? Because people's interests vary. Our interest varies, our culture varies, our income level varies, our life experiences vary, our functional levels vary, our health conditions vary, and on and on. So as we move forward, we need to think about what can we do to personalize whatever services we bring to the market. So let's look at the health model to start with. According to a recent research report by Deloitte, by the year 2040, at the heart of the healthcare model, and we've been talking about this for a long time, is the person. But I want you to think about one question, and that is, if the person is truly at the center of the model, how does the current model have to change? Because currently, the person is not at the center of the model, whether we say so or not. Well, according to Deloitte's report, we would look at what is the catalyst for this change, and that is technology. Radical interoperability data will empower hyper-engaged, and I'm reading their comment here, hyper-engaged consumers to sustain well-being and receive care only, and that's the key, only in the instance where well-being fails. There's much more to the model. There's much more to what they're talking about. But of course, given the time we have today, we can't go into all of that. But think about this. How do we sustain well-being and how do we receive care, which is curved right around the individual? There's a lot more to come all around that. But what we are seeing today is the rise of well tech. Now, so we're focused on the individual and we're using well tech to support that focus. But I look at technology nowadays and I think about it and I think 30 years ago when I went to a physician's office, or even 20 years ago, or 10 years ago when I went to a physician's office, I went there because I wanted to, one, have an issue checked, but two, I would have my what? My heart rate, my blood pressure, my oxygen saturation if I needed it, all of these different things checked at the doctor's office. Today, all of these are available and many of them are utilized within our own homes, creating and supporting the focus on the individual being responsible for their own health and well-being. And as we monitor all of this seamlessly, the only time we really interact with a healthcare environment is when an issue is identified. So as an example, if I am utilizing a patch all around my glucose levels and it shows that things are changing and I need to actually speak to a doctor, the doctor will be alerted and I will now have an appointment to speak to him instead of going in when I just feel something is off. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see is a simple ring that we can wear, by the way, that can tell you if you are dehydrated or not. Simple, but a big issue for a lot of older people. The delirium that comes from that can have catastrophic impact on people's quality of life and even life itself. So what is happening today, and we all know this, and that is that technology is becoming the core that is driving this focus on the health model being focused on the individual. But there are two words, person-centered and precision, that we need to actually keep in mind when we talk about this. And here's an example of that. Well, I got to have a little fun, so I put in, we're whooping it up. And this product is called Whoop. And what this product, and of course, there's a spelling mistake there as well. That's what happens with late night presentations. So what happens with this product is it will tell you when is the optimal time for you to perform. It will record your sleep. It will record how well you sleep. It will recall how often you wake up. And it will tell you in the middle of the day or at the start of the day, you should or shouldn't be performing a physical activity, working out or what have you, based on the information that it has acquired over the past 24 hours. Or that you shouldn't be going at a high intensity because you are actually too tired and you may injure yourself or something else. We're going to see more and more of these kinds of products. Just think about professional athletes. They're on the fields today and they are being monitored to come off when they are actually losing their capability to perform at the highest level. In the past, you would just look at the individual to see that. Today, technology is helping to monitor and make the investment in an athlete one that gets a higher return. So if we're going to embrace all of this technology, the first question is, are older adults embracing it themselves? Well, our organization, the International Council in Active Aging, that is in 57 countries and has 10,000 organizations that belong to us who are focused on healthy aging, actually did a recent research study of 1,100 individuals. And we found out of these individuals that 32% of older adults, this is 65 and above, already are using wearables, and 24% actually want to use wearables. And yes, they want to use it, want to spend some money on it when they have it. Now, this isn't that far off. A couple of years ago, the research showed that about 50% of older adults were actually open to using wearables to monitor their health and well-being, if that was a reason for doing it. So what we see is that there is a market that is changing. It is willing to adapt. There's a model that is changing. It is willing to adapt. There are products and services that are coming in to fulfill that. The question is, how do we as individuals and an organization respond to this? Well, here's one response. This is from the Blue Zones. Many of you may be familiar with the Blue Zones. The Blue Zones is creating a medical and well-being center in Miami. And at the heart of that is data. So think about this. How often have you walked into a center that actually is set up like this to provide you feedback on your health and well-being? I can tell you, I have never done that. So look at all the different elements that are involved in this: activity, environment, nutrition, stress, sleep, brain activity, having a body scan, heart programs, personal coaching. All of this comes together to focus on the individual. All of the people involved in your care team, in your wellness team, are all part of this. So as our model changes, our environment that it is delivered in will also be changing, and how it's delivered will be changing. But one of the other things that will also need to change is, who are the people that are actually going to deliver these services? Where are they going to get this expertise? Are they younger? Are they older? We already have a staff shorting, or a shortage of staff right now. So where are they going to come from? How are we going to reskill individuals? Where are we going to reskill individuals? Sounds like an easy answer, doesn't it? The reality is most organizations are not reskilling older workers, as an example. And reskilling younger workers is still even at a poor level. So as we think about all of this, don't just think about the professional who is working with us, but those around us. How can we create environments that are interdependent, or that we can be interdependent on others? Now, I had the good fortune of just interviewing Carl Pillemer from Cornell in this topic. And one of the things that Carl, brought to the forefront was, we are living much longer. We know that, but so are our families. So we are spending many more years connected to many, many more generations throughout our whole family circle. So how do we build interdependence? Because not only is the model going to rely on us, but on us connecting with others. I'll give you an example of that. In Japan, as an example, when you are in, I believe it was the Ministry of Health, I can't be 100% certain in that, but when individuals were out doing their Tai Chi in the morning, they actually incentivized people to connect with others. Why? Because most people had a challenge finding caregivers. There's a shortage of caregivers, but if we connected with our neighbors, we could rely on each other to care for each other, to help each other out, whether it is to pick up groceries if you're not feeling well or to assist you, what have you. So as you look at people, don't just think professionals. Yes, we're going to need new skills and we're going to need to understand technology better and we're going to have challenges with care and caregiving, but think about how we can embrace interdependence as a creative solution for that. We've grown up with interdependence all around us. Our school teachers, the person that we meet on a regular basis that helps us in the grocery stores, our bankers, the list goes on and on. Our family members, we are an independent and interdependent population. Here's also an opportunity that is happening currently, and that is rethinking how older adults themselves gain their information to move forward in their own life. Because when we speak about people, it's not just about professionals, it's about us as individuals. And one group that is doing a great job with this is Chip Connolly, who has the Modern Elder Academy. And Chip actually has, it's in Baja. He's also opening up regenerative communities, all with a focus on helping older adults rediscover themselves and find out what they want to do with their next chapter of life, which is a huge opportunity. So could you open up a Modern Elder Academy? Could you provide the education? Could you provide the experiences? Could you provide the products or even build the communities? An activist in residence. How many of you are delivering that kind of program? Think about those. Think about it a little bit differently. You have things like encore.com that provides a multitude of different services for individuals that are looking or have already retired. So people isn't just about your staff. People is about just that. People learning to move forward in a new way. With all of this said, for us to do that, though, we need to change our perception because the reality is, and I've been doing this now for 30 years, and I hate to say it, but ageism is still at the forefront of society. And given where we are with COVID-19, it has been a sad scene to see it move even further forward. So, with all of that said, what is the impact of this ageist thinking? Well, aging well and embracing the opportunity is what I would like us to focus on. The problem is, it was found that just one that the cost of ageism in the U.S. was $63 billion just 1 year. The cost of ageism. Why? Because ageism resulted in 17.404 million cases of just 8 health conditions. Now, ageism is rampant in the workplace. Ageism is rampant in the healthcare arena. Ageism is rampant with politicians and the media. However, Sarah Harper, the director at Oxford Institute in Aging, believes that we need to actually counter that by repositioning how we view and say and attach the word old or what we attach it to. as individuals, and that is that it should only be referenced when an individual is to the point that they are frail and in need of significant assistance. In between that point in time, in your 70s and 80s, we should be referred to as active adults, because that's what we are. We are actively engaged in society. We need to change ageism. We need to change our mindset, and we need to start with our language, as Joe Coughlin rightly says. Of course, in the midst of COVID-19, ageism has actually come to the forefront and also lended its or assisted in the rise of mental health issues. Prior to COVID-19, by the year 2020, which was last year, the second leading cause of death and disability was expected to be depression, according to the World Health Organization. I'm sure that we have passed that road mark, and with COVID-19, we have seen a rapid rise in mental health issues. And part of this is when somebody is telling you, you are constantly the vulnerable population. You are to be locked down. You are not to go out. Imagine that on an ongoing basis. That's not to say that we don't want to be safe. We don't want to take precautions. Language makes a difference. We also see that our perceptions of ourselves can have a significant impact. According to Dr. Becca Levy at Yale University, well, we can impact ourselves by 7.6 years we can reduce our longevity by 7.6 years if we simply have a negative perception of our aging process on average. So, what do you think about aging? What do you think about your own aging process? And if you're negative about that, you may want to change that way of thinking. And there are immense opportunities for that. Behavior change opportunities that are bound out there today. The challenge is many people aren't delivering them, and they aren't actually being effective because they are delivered in an incorrect way. So, with all of that said, if you didn't think that being negative about your own aging process was a problem, if your spouse is negative about or if your spouse is negative about your aging problem or aging, the reality is that you are less likely to get assistance from them as you are growing older. So it's time to start in that positivity, isn't it? It's time to pivot. And to pivot, we need to move forward. We need to create a new language. We need to move from not at your age to embracing the opportunities that have been provided us today. We know we're healthier, we're living better, we have more income, but we still reference aging in the media and in many instances as a burden as opposed to an opportunity. We've been given this immense opportunity. What we do with it, well, that's in our own hands. And here's what the marketing companies that are selling clothing are doing with it. The marketing companies that are selling lipstick and makeup. Why? Because there is this huge group of people out there who, no matter what their age is, they still want to look great. And why wouldn't you? The problem is a lot of times we look at aging like we do the white shoe that you have for a diabetic foot and think that that's good enough, instead of putting some style behind it and making it look and feel better and still function the way you want it to, so that you can actually embrace it at a greater level. So with that said, maybe 3 words we should look at as we look to create this movement of healthy aging and aging well to become the next normal. And that is aspiration, empowerment, and access. Whatever we do, how do we fulfill people's aspirations? Well, first thing is ask them. Second, How do we empower individuals to do the things they want to do when they want to do them? And how do we provide access to the products and the places that will enable people to do that? These three words basically spell the opportunity that is in front of us. So number 4, if we keep that in mind and we want to look at the potential of the older population as a marketplace, the first thing we need to do is to implement a new way of thinking. Trying to implement a new model with a dated way of thinking is not going to move you very far at all. So, what is that new way of thinking? What is a new model? Well, as you see in the picture here, older adults are adopting technology. How many times do you hear people saying, oh, older adults, they don't use technology? Well, they're adopting technology for what they need and what they find is valuable, especially in the midst of COVID-19. So how can you embrace that and bring new and interesting products and services to them through technology? Well, the reality is no matter what you do, population aging will impact your income one way or another. It will impact all of our futures because the reality is we're all aging from the moment that we are born. So here's the opportunity when we look at the potential. And I won't belabor this point because I'm sure that pretty well almost every single one of you on this live stream event today realize the opportunity. There are over 1.6 billion people. I always like to ask the question, don't we think 1.6 billion people deserve a response, deserve the products that they need, deserve to be heard? Of course they do. And the reality is that 1 out of every 2 adults over the age of 50 is the marketplace out there. Or let me rephrase that. 1 out of every 2 individuals are 1 out of every 2 adults are individuals over the age of 50. Big difference in what I said the first time compared to that. And they spend 1 out of every $2 and they have 70% of the disposable income. So the opportunity is immense, as we all know. The problem is the lack of focus. There was a research study done not that long ago in Europe that asked companies why they weren't focused on the older market. And the simple answer was, I hadn't thought about it. Think about that. I haven't thought about it. The size, the 7 out of every $10 that could be spent, and you haven't thought about it. Maybe it's time to change. So with that said, let's think about all of these different areas. What are the solutions that we need to bring to the forefront to address just these areas? There are many other areas. It's untold opportunity, but only if you embrace it. That is why today products and services are literally not flying off the shelves, but coming to the shelves that are focused on the older population. It's taken a long time and a lot of neglect, but it is finally getting there. We're moving past Pampers and diapers and Depends to products and services to help people live a better quality of life. Why? To me, this is a one point that changes everything. Today, we have much greater human potential than we ever thought we had in the past. All we have to do is to reach out, grab it, embrace it, discover it, and utilize it, or that those that are looking for an opportunity to bring it to us. The challenge is many of us still are not doing so. So, with that said, let's think about what consumers are spending their money on. Problem is that the dollars and cents argument to the older population has been there for a long time, and we haven't paid attention to it. Today, we're actually spending in the States, as an example, more on products and services to help us age well than on drugs to treat chronic disease. Huge opportunity, huge lost opportunity for those that don't focus on it. Here's a poor picture, but one from CVS pharmacies that are actually bringing yoga into their pharmacy. Why? Because when people are looking for their drugs, they're also looking for a lot of wellness solutions as well. And why not deliver them where people are at the time they're looking for them? We're also monitoring everything nowadays, whether it's physical activity, whether it's engagement, whether it's our spiritual connections, whether it is our mental health, whether it is our breathing, no matter what it is. And that data is going to help create the new products that we see coming out and will be coming out. And I'll touch on that in a moment. So we have these products, we have this potential, we have these individuals that have a need. How do we promote all of this? Well, better than we are. The reality is that 95% of all marketing dollars are spent on individuals below the age of 50. Think about that. Think about the slide I showed you with the income. Think about the slide of the numbers and all of that, yet neglect. That needs to change, and areas that have started to change to address that are ones that you wouldn't traditionally have thought, such as clothing. The next normal for all of us as we move forward is realizing that to embrace our human potential, the unattainable for many of us is now attainable. And what we once thought was just for young people, adventure travel, physical activity, sport and participating in competitive sports is now regular amongst older adults. Think about the National Senior Games that has hundreds of thousands of individuals participating in it. One of the best quotes I heard from an individual there was, "I prefer to be 6 feet over," he was doing a high jump, 6 feet over than 6 feet under. Well, that's the right attitude, I believe. We're also going to see more and more personalized solutions. So as an example, data is double-edged. We're afraid of sharing our data, but we're actually moving into the data economy where we will be able to actually sell our data to companies and to multiple companies. And what will we get in return otherwise than cash? We'll also get the fact that, let's say, for instance, if I am a runner and I've just completed 5 marathons, that the chip in my shoe that has been giving them all that data may actually tell me, you've just finished 5 marathons. You need a new pair of running shoes because they've started to break down. Here's a 25% discount. Why don't you go and get a new pair of running shoes? Wonderful opportunity. With all of that said, how we promote products and services is nowhere near as effective as it could be. Older adults give most marketers a failing grade, which spells opportunity. Opportunity to be the one that promotes aspiration, empowerment, and provide access. Remember those 3 words. And that also applies to the places and the environments that individuals participate in that are constructed from multiple functional levels. We're seeing new models for things such as this. This is Avi, that is a clinic that is now in the Villages, which is the largest senior living community in, actually, I think the world, in the US for sure. And this is all hyperbaric chambers. And people are now coming in because of the research that is showing the benefits of being in a hyperbaric chamber. This is only one part of their new and innovative solution. My point in showing you this is that there is innovation that is taking place, whether we are aware of it or not. How we view things is very different than what it used to be. Okay. So much so that, the same Deloitte report that came out showed that the bricks and mortar of the healthcare model will now become more by 2040 will now become more like a shopping center for education, prevention, and treatment, more in like a retail setting, and that the local hubs will connect consumers to all the online and the virtual environments and the auxiliary wellness programs. Will it, won't it? Only the future will tell, but it's an exciting shift compared to the current model that we have that is highly outdated and very ineffective when it comes to the older population, especially think about drugs and the interaction between drugs and the professional aspect of a physician actually understanding how that all comes together versus a geriatric or a geriatric physician or a gerontologist. So with that said, some of the things that are changing in regards to the environment are senior living. Senior living communities, the word senior has been dropped from many of the communities over the last few years. And now we see medical resorts, we see wellness communities, communal living, co-housing, villages, the list goes on, intergenerational communities. Why? Because we're looking for new models. There's an opportunity for a new model. Here's one model that is being integrated in the middle market because most individuals are not able to afford the more upper end model that is being provided. This model connects the greater community with the community at large, or I should say the community, senior living community with the community at large. Flow of goods and people moving back and forth, just like it would at a community center. Individuals coming in to use a fitness center, to use a walking paths, to use a green space all around, and moving out to the neighbors. We see a decrease in quantity and an increase in quality to address that market's needs. And these are the kinds of properties that are opening up to address that. What does a middle market community want? Well, this was a research study that we did that looked at choice, value, a la carte. Think about this for all of the different services you have. And whether you have seen a tech hub in the middle of a senior living community, and if you haven't, maybe you should. Why? Because the world is becoming hybrid. We know that 55% of older adults actually will be utilizing, Facebook, Zoom, all of that moving forward, as well as ordering supplies. We all know this, telemedicine, it's here to stay, as is the change in these communities. We've also seen an emergence of the outdoors coming indoors, such as this community in Singapore that I had the opportunity to visit. As you can see, there's certainly a lot of nature built into the property. It actually won the best architectural design for, I think it was 2019. So thought to ponder, does the built environment that you are in, indoors and outdoors, facilitate healthier lifestyles? And if not, what you can do about that? What can you do about that? And then the last two things, and I'll move through these rapidly as we only have 10 minutes left or 11 minutes left, and that is policies. Policies are so individual. We have health in all policies. Some places have created things like a Ministry of Social Inclusion, or at least in the UK, a Minister of Social Isolation. We're seeing all of these different and new and innovative things. But I'd like us to think about whatever policy we focus on, coming back to the very start of this presentation. How do we create policies that support a person-centered approach to all aspects of our life, within all aspects of your organization, or within your product and service, or within your research, focusing on the individual and not the masses? And number 9, programs. Given that our organization is all about wellness and all about active aging and healthy aging, we focus on the 7 dimensions of wellness and how they actually support our drive to live a healthier life as we move forward. 90% of individuals surveyed by Edward Jones and AgeWave in 2020 said that being healthy actually meant being able to do the things they wanted to do when they wanted to do them, and within all areas of our life, which is what the dimensions of wellness cover: cognitive training, physical activity, social connections, being one with the environment, reducing emotional stress, reskilling and learning new opportunities, and connecting with a power greater than ourselves. These are just the backbones for the model and all the elements that fall under that. So I'm going to give you just one example of that, and then we will wrap up here, and that is physical activity, because it is, in my mind, one of the foundations for being able to achieve a healthier, older lifestyle, or a healthier lifestyle. Forget the older. And that is, first off, the main reason that many of us don't exercise is related to health issues. So if we can reduce the health issues, that would go away. Lack of time. If we are not having to caregive, we're not having to do all of these different things, maybe we'll have a little bit more time. And if we can support the interest and the motivation, it would make a difference. But that's not where I'm going with this. The reality is there's lots of barriers and lots of reasons why people don't exercise, from health issues to lack of time to lack of interest and motivation, as I mentioned. But the question is, why do people actually exercise? And I want to show you a very quick video. It's in a foreign language, so I think we're fine in regards to whether you can hear it or not is really irrelevant. Well, we all have a reason for doing things. We all have lots of reasons for not doing things. But finding out the motivation that actually drives someone to do something is what's needed. We need to change our model of physical activity to work with an older population. As the authors of this study reflected on it, they said, our findings add to and reinforce calls for a reframing of our approach to physical activity for older adults, from encouragement of a lifetime of physical activity to individual tailoring of physical activity assessment and prescription. So coming full circle from the start to the end, where we are is focusing on a brand promise, but for a better, longer life. How to get there is focusing on the individual, being precise with our recommendations, being person-centered in our approach, and remembering that the way forward is all about, as Socrates said, focusing not all of our energies on the old or fighting the old, but in building the new. So with that said, I want to thank you all for actually participating in this session. I hope that you have learned some new and interesting information, and I will turn it back over to Larry and go from there.
Colin, that was amazing. Thank you for taking us on quite the journey. And I open the floor for questions. People will type it into their into the chat, and then we can get going. So the first question is, how do we as researchers, innovators, and clinicians include older adults as partners in our work? What kind of resources, organizations could help us set up those kinds of relationships?
I think, like everything, you look for organizations like us. There are lots of organizations out there, whether it's CARP in Canada, AARP, that have access to millions of older adults and have a vested interest in the research that you create. So look to partner with groups like that, or groups. There's an old saying, and that is, you always go where the food is. And so you look for where, at least I did when I was younger, and I got in a lot of trouble for it. But you go where the people are, and the people are with groups like that, with senior housing organizations, with senior centers, people who have a mass of older adults who also have a vested interest in helping them to live better, longer.
Are you currently partnering with or any specific organizations on research?
We haven't partnered directly. We have certainly disseminated over the last 20 years a multitude of research, and we have, worked hand in hand with a lot of different groups. But sometimes also, as an example, I'm a technical advisor in 2 areas for the World Health Organization, but I'm doing it as an individual because, sometimes global groups or national groups are very sensitive of who they actually work with, if you're for-profit, not-for-profit, and so forth. So we are a for-profit organization driven like a not-for-profit organization.
Okay, I hadn't realized that aspect of it.
Yes.
So each of the organizations and the countries that you have each pay a fee to be part of the.
Yeah, like, in Canada, you have ORCA. In Ontario, the Ontario Retirement Centers Association, and, all BCSLA and BC and so forth, that are all member-based organizations, and we are too. We have 10,000 organizations that belong to us.
Oh, wow. Is there a have or have not divide for older adults? Does the idea of older adults as a market mean that we need to consider a broader range of social support for those less advantaged?
Absolutely. I think, the goal is to create products and services that apply to everyone. A lot of products, like I use the example of the shoe for the diabetic foot. Very few people actually want to walk around in that shoe unless they have to, because it screams that I have diabetes. Very few older adults want to do things that are just for older adults because it screams, I'm older. You see even retirement communities nowadays moving towards intergenerational communities, because we know that it's all about bringing people together with affluence or not, in a meaningful way, not just an overt way.
Time for just one more question, because we're at the 1 o'clock time here and 8 o'clock time in Sweden. is there one technology that you think is leading the pack that could be useful for everybody
I think
and effective?
I think that we are going to see wearables become, or let me rephrase that. Every single researcher that I have interviewed that is involved in the technology end of things is viewing wearables as the key to the future of this new healthcare model. Now, wearables are diverse. It could be a shirt with biometrics built into it. It could be, a patch. It could be a watch. So, but the wearables, I think, are going to be where most of it is going to be found.
Super. I really appreciate your taking the time to be with us. I hope you'll be able to join us over tomorrow if you have time to meet with people and sit at the tables and talk to people, because I know people would love to have a chance to ask you some questions. We're wrapping for today because it's 8 o'clock in Sweden, and our colleagues from Sweden have been kind enough to stick around to hear your presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Alana just to summarize and say goodbye to everybody. And thank you again for joining us, and hopefully see you tomorrow.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.